Hey everyone, it's Kabir here. So in last session we saw about the arrays, functions and the objects, right? So one more point I wanted to add in this object concept, like in what object contains? It contains the collection of properties, right? Now each property is nothing but the value of a key and value pair, right? It is the pair of key and value. So here the value is a string, a value is in the second property, the value is boolean. So in the same way, you can have value any type, right? It might be a number. Now it might have something like a decimal. It can be any type. Even the value can be a normal function as well. For example, I want to find a country, right? So this time, instead of directly writing a country, I'm writing some function. So I can write a value as a function. So I write a function, and here we should not give any name to the function, just we have to write the function keyword and open parenthesis and close parenthesis. Then we have to open the curly braces. Now I'm going to say return India. Now this particular function, whenever you are going to call, it is going to return India. It means whenever you want this particular uh, person information, like you wanted to know he is from which country, then you have to say you have to call this particular function. So how can you call this function? Because this particular function doesn't have name, but it has a key called country. So you have to call this particular function using the reference key. So how can we call? For example, if I wanted to call this name, how we will be calling information dot name? In the same way, it will be like information dot country, but the country should be like function call. For example, let me come here and let me comment this everything as of now. So we have commented. Now what I'm gonna say, console dot log of information dot country. Now country is a function, right? We have to call it as a function. That's it. Now save it, come here, and you have to just say node and your file name. Now you got India. Now India is nothing but your this particular value which is written. This function is returning. So what is the return, we will be seeing in the next session. As of now, just you have to remember here, object not only contains a value as a string or boolean, it can contain value as a function as well. So property can contain a function as well. So now this is a user defined object, means this object has been defined by us, right? Now we are giving our own names, we are giving our own properties. Right here I'm giving my own properties, and I'm giving like my own keys. Okay, whatever I can do, whatever I want, right? In the same way, you will have some predefined objects, like you will have window object, document object, all that. Now this is a predefined, means JavaScript people are giving this object. So what object contains some collection of some properties, like here we have the properties like name, married, company. In the same way, they will have some properties. Now here we have some properties as a function also, right? Even they will have some functions in that properties. So how can we access? First of all, we have to understand what is the name of that object. For example, we have the document object, document. Okay, fine. Now what document contains? It contains some set of properties. Okay, just we have to understand that properties key. So what is the key of in that property, and what is the purpose of that property? If you understand what is the purpose of that property, and if you understand that property key, then it will be very easy for you to utilize that particular property according to your requirement, right? So just I wanted to explain this simple concept. So you have understood now, object is nothing but collection of properties. It might contain some strings, booleans or functions as well. Okay, fine. And now whatever we have defined, it was a user defined, but even we will have a predefined objects as well. So one of the example is nothing but your windows and the document. So what is a window object, what is document object, we will be seeing. So you have understood. Now here what I'm going to do, I want to show you what is document object. Now this document object is predefined object, means this object is already given by JavaScript people. If they are giving you document object, it means they have defined some properties in it. So we have to understand what properties it contains, right? So to understand it, first of all, I'm going to create one simple file. So I'm going to say something like task1.html. So I'm creating a HTML file. Now, if this is a HTML file, I want a structure of HTML. We know that. Just write doc and tab. Now we got HTML structure. So I'm going to remove this particular thing, meta tag. Okay, fine. Now this is the document. Now what we can write here? Now here we can write some HTML components, like you can create some text box, some button. So as of now, I'm going to create one button. So I will be saying button. Okay, fine. Click me. Now we have created a button. In the same way, can I create many things? Yes, I can create some input. So I'll be saying input type equals to text. Okay. Now just close this particular input tag. Right now here I'm going to say something like enter text. So we have created some UI, right? Now I'm going to save it and just open in our browser. Now this is how it is going to look like, right? Enter text and we have some button like a click me. Now this particular elements, right? Now this is called one element, this is called one more element, right? Now these elements, if you wanted to access in JavaScript, so how can you access? Now first of all, how can you write a JavaScript code in this HTML? You can write in many ways. The first way is, if you wanted to write the JavaScript code in the same file, then you have to write it in a tag called script. Now I'm writing a script tag. Now this script tag should be inside your header tag. Now we have wrote the script tag, right? Now what we can write a JavaScript code here, right? Now this script tag should be present inside your header tag, or else you can write even in your body tag, but it should be the last line, right? So before closing your body tag, you have to write your script. So you can write anywhere. So best place is to write here. But normally whenever we are writing a JavaScript file, I mean JavaScript code, we are going to write in a separate file, and that file we are going to link. So how we can write CSS? We can write in inline. You can write in the same, right, internal approach, and you can have a separate file of a CSS. Then you are going to link that file to the HTML. In the same way, JavaScript code also you can write in your header tag, and inside the head tag you have to use a tag called script. Now in the same way, if you wanted to write in separate file, then you have to create a file with the extension .js, and you have to link that file to this HTML. That approach we will be seeing later. Now as of now, we are writing JavaScript code in the same HTML document. Now if you wanted to write the same JavaScript code in the same HTML document, then we have to write that code in one of the tag called script tag, right? Now inside, what contains inside a script tag? It contains a JS code, means JavaScript code. In the same way, what contains in style tag? It contains the CSS code. So here what I'm going to do, I'm going to write something like a function, some function like f1. Okay, fine. Now I have wrote some function. Now I'm going to say something like console.log, right? Console.log. Now what I wanted to print, I wanted to print document object. Now I wanted to see what document object contains, which is given by your particular JavaScript people. So I'm going to write document, right? Now what is document? It is an object which is defined by the JavaScript people. Now I need to call this function. When I can call this function? Whenever I am going to click on this button, right? So before that, we have to understand what is click button, right? How can we call this function when we click on this particular button? So for that, we have to understand a concept called events. Now we will be understanding events after some time. So as of now, I'm writing some code. So don't worry what I'm writing, just I'm writing some on click, and I'm going to say F1 and just close. So don't worry about the code, just see what this document is going to contain. So right click, open in your default browser, right? Now I'm going to, now you want to see inside your browser the code of this console, right? If you wanted to see this console.log, where you can see inside your browser. So inside your browser, you have to right click, you have to click on inspect. I hope you guys are seeing, it's simple. Just you have to click right click and you have to click on the inspect. Now once you click on this inspect, go to the console. Once you come to the console, now here you can see, so we are going to call that particular function whenever we are going to click on this button. So if I click on this button, we got some value, right? This we are getting because of a console. Now we are in the console, we are printing document object. Just see, it is an object. So now just see what you contain. Now this object contains your HTML code, what you wrote, right? Now it is containing everything what HTML code you wrote. It means whenever you are going to pass a document in a JavaScript and you are going to link it with some HTML, then that document is going to print your this particular HTML document. As simple as it is, right? Now it is printing all the object. Now you want to do some operations on this document, right? Something you wanted to change or you wanted to do. Now if you wanted to do, JavaScript people are going to provide you some methods, some properties. You have to use that properties. For example, we have here input tag. We have the button. I want to access this input, means I wanted to do some operations on this particular input. So how can we do that? We are going to see, right? Now this is the document. That's it. Now what document is going to contain, just see. Now this is normal your uh, Chrome page. Now I'm going to right click here and just open inspect, go to console and just say here document. Now you got something. Now here also you are getting some code. This code is nothing but the code required to develop this web page. Which web page? This particular web page. So that's how we are getting. So in the same way, we wrote some HTML code, right? Now we wanted to access this particular HTML inside our JavaScript. So for that, they are providing a document. So whenever you are going to print document, it is going to print your present HTML page. Now, if you wanted to access this particular button or this particular input box, right? If you wanted to access, then this document will have some properties, right? In that, one of the property called document dot. Now document is object, so document. Now document contains properties. So how can we access the properties? Using dot, we have to say the property key. So one of the key is nothing but get element by ID. Now by this you can access any elements, but for that you have to give some ID. For example, I wanted to access this particular input, so I will give one attribute called ID. Now I'm going to say it has an input text. Now you can give any value for that ID. Now if you wanted to access this particular input in your JavaScript, then you have to say document dot get element by ID. This is a method. Now you have to pass one argument. That argument should be the value of your ID. Input text. Now whenever you are going to pass something like this, so whenever the control comes to document dot get element by ID, it is going to see what is the ID. Then it is going to come to your document and it is going to search for this ID. Now it is going to find, okay, now this input has this particular ID. Then it is going to give this particular input reference to this one. So it will return. So it will return means it will throw. So we have to catch it. So I'm going to say var input reference. Now you can give any kind of value, right? Now we got input reference here in JavaScript. Now dynamically you can perform any kind of operations on that particular input. So one of the property we have like disabled, right? Now here if I tell it has a disabled and save it and comes to here and just refresh, sorry, here we have to refresh. Now our text box has been disabled. Why? Because the value by default disabled value is true, right? If I say disabled equals to false, if you refresh it, just a minute, disabled equals to false. If I say it as true, save it, come here. Now this is disabled. Now I wanted to make it as a false. So by default, the value should be false. So externally, I can view all over like false. Save it, come here. Now if I refresh, now the value is not false. The reason I think disable equals to true, it is going to take just value. Now if you want make it as a false, just remove this particular word disabled. Now if you refresh, now it is like this, like you can enable. Now I wanted to make it disable whenever I'm going to click on this button, right? If I click on this button, this should be disabled. It means I have to add that property. So how can we add that property? First of all, we wanted to perform on which element? I wanted to perform that operation on this text box, right? So first of all, we have to get the reference of this text box. So how can we get the reference? Using get element by id. Now we got the reference of that particular text, right? Now I'm going to say input ref dot disabled equals to true, right? Now save it. Now come here. Now just refresh. Now it is not disabled, right? Now if I click on this button, then it is going to call this function. Now this function, what it is going to take, it is going to take first reference of that particular input element, then it is going to add disabled property for that input element. So I'm going to say simply click. Now once I have clicked, now it is disabled. It means we are performing some dynamic operations on this particular input, right, using the JavaScript. Now what is this on click, right? Now first of all, if you wanted to understand this particular, you have to understand the concept called events. Events.js. Now, what are the events? Events are nothing but this is your browser, right? If you perform some actions on this browser, like you're clicking on the button, you're writing some text, right? You're writing some kind of text. There are some actions you are performing. These actions are called events. So whenever you click on this particular button, it means you have triggered some event. Now, if I'm changing some, if I'm writing some text on this particular text boxes, like I'm writing Kabir, K-I-B-I-R, it means I am doing some changes, means I'm performing some operations on this browser. If you perform any operations or any actions on the browser, that are called events. Now whenever these events are going to trigger, you have to handle that events. So to handle that events, your JavaScript is going to give you some functions, predefined functions like on click. It is going to give on change, right? Then you have like a key up, key down. So we have so many events. So as of now, just remember click event. So when this click event is going to trigger, whenever you are going to click, so that click event is going to trigger. So that's why what we have to do, mm, we have wrote this button. Now whenever I'm going to click on this button, means it is going to trigger some actions I have performed. So it is going to trigger some event. So that event I have to handle. So this on click will be handling that particular event. Which event? Clicking the event is nothing but some actions. So that actions are going to handle by this event handler. The event handler, I mean event handler is called your on click. Now what you wanted to do when you are click on that button, after clicking on that button, you wanted to perform some operations, right? Means if you wanted to perform some operations, means you have to write some functions. So you are writing some functions and you have to call that function. So you are calling that function. So you are telling whenever I'm going to click on that button, you have to call this function. So what this function is going to do, it is going to take first reference, then it is going to disable that particular input box, means it is doing some action, some function. So this is called on click event. So we can write for a tag, button, for anyone you can tag, but just you have to understand what are the events. So as of now, I hope you guys understood. If you have any doubts, just comment your doubt, or else you can text on WhatsApp as well. So that is the one thing, right? So now to understand this very clearly, okay, let us perform some task. Okay, now what I'm going to do, I'm just going to remove this particular code from here, and I'm going to remove this as well. Now I wanted to use Bootstrap. So what we have to do, we have to go to our Bootstrap, get Bootstrap. Just say get Bootstrap. Now just click on get started. Now copy this particular link. Come here and just paste it, right? Now we have pasted the Bootstrap link, so we can use the Bootstrap as well. So here, what I wanted to do, I wanted to take two input boxes like a login button, right? So I'm going to take div and I will be saying class equals to form group. So before that, let me do one thing. Let me take a container dot container tab. Then let me take one row. Let me take dot call md something like 4 tab. Okay, fine. Now we took a container, we took a row, then we took something like call md4. Now what I wanted to do here, now I wanted to create one card. So I'll be taking a card. Okay, fine. Now in this card, I will be taking one card body, card hyphen body tab. We took the card, then we took the card hyphen body. Now here I wanted to take div. So div, I will be saying class equals to form group, right? Now in this I want to take one input type equals to text. Then I will be saying something like placeholder equals to enter name. Okay, that's it. And in the same way, let me copy this. So one more thing, I have to give form control the class, right? Class equals to form control. That's it. Now let me copy this thing, paste here, and this time let me say it has password. And type should be password. Now save it. Now we have just defined a login kind of form. So I need one button as well. So I will be taking one button, and class should be something like btn primary, and I'm gonna say save data. Save it and come here. Node, no, nothing here. So just you have to right click, open in the browser, because this is your HTML5. So we got some kind of tag, right? So let me give some more stylings. So what I will be doing, I will say this card. So now let me give some more stylings. Like for this container, let me give something like mt-4 and mx-auto. So let me see how it is going to look like. If I refresh, now it came here, right? So instead of container, I'm going to give it to the card. So mx auto. Now we got a text box, now we got a password, and we got some kind of button, right? Okay, fine. Now what we have to do is, right, whenever I'm going to enter something here like Kabir, and I wrote some password, if I save on this data, this particular data should come here, it should display here. So whatever I'm going to enter here, it should display here. So if you want to display here, so what I'm going to do, I will take two p tags, right? So inside this container only, I will take one more row. So it's better to take one more row. So dot row tab. Yeah, now here I will take something like p, and I will give some class equals to some h4 right? And lead. In the same way, I will take one more p, right? Now this is also same thing, right? Now if you save it and if you refresh, now you are not able to see anything yet because we didn't enter any elements there. Now my requirement is whenever I'm going to type something here and type here and click on this particular save data, that particular data should display in this p tag. So if you wanted to display, we know that this particular action should be performed once I click on this button, right? So I have to write some event on this particular button. So what event? Click event, nothing but on click. So let me write on click. So whenever on click is going to, like whenever we are going to click, some action is going to perform down the browser, means that action is going to be handled by this on click. So whenever it is going to handle, we have to call some function here. So I'm going to call something like get data function. Now this function I have to define in the JavaScript. So whenever I'm going to click on that button, this particular function is going to execute. So I will come here and I will say function get data. So what functionality we have to write? First of all, we have to take this data, right? If I wanted to take the data from this text box, first of all, I need the reference of this text box. So if I need a reference, I have to give some ID to this text box. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to say for this text box, ID equals to something like input text, right? In the same way, for this second input, I'm going to say ID equals to input password. Okay guys, and for this p also I need, because once I get the data from that text box, I have to attach that data to the p tag. So I need this p's also. So for that also I'm giving p name, and for this p I'm giving ID equals to p password. Now you can give any names, right? So just try to give some good names, so by reading that name, everyone able to understand what that means, right? So now what we have to do, now I have to get the reference. So how can we get the reference? We know that this particular HTML document will come in object. So document object. So if you wanted to access any particular element, we know we have one method called get element by ID. Now we have to pass the ID. So first input reference I need. So it's nothing but input text. Now this is going to return that particular reference. So we have to catch. So where input text ref equals to, that's it. So we got the reference of first input box. In the same way, now you required the input of second box, right? So what you will be doing, first you have to write document dot get element by ID. Now what is the ID of, it's nothing but input password. Now it is going to return the input, so we have to catch. So where input password ref equals to, so let me make it as capital R. So in the same way, I need that p paragraph also, because I have to attach some data for that paragraph. So I have to get the reference. So I'm going to say where p text ref equals to document dot get element by ID of text ref, right? Get element by ID of p name. So what is the name ID of that particular paragraph? In the same way, where p password ref equals to document dot get element by ID of p password. So we got the reference of that two input boxes and two paragraph boxes. Now I want the value, right? I want the value of that input box. So for that, we have a property called value. So how can we access? Simple. First of all, we have to get the reference, means which element value you need. So I need first input box element. So for that, we took the reference as input text reference. So I will write in input text reference, means it represents your first input box dot value. So whenever you say dot value, it is going to return the value inside that text box. So I have to catch that value. So I will say var input text value. Okay, now you can give any names, just I'm giving proper names. Now in the same way, I need the value of second input box also. So but first of all, we have to get that reference of second input. So already we got the reference of second input. So what is the reference? It's nothing but input password ref, right? Now we need the value of that input. For that dot value, now we have to catch that value. So var input password value equals to, now we got the value of that particular text box. Now once we got that value, we have to attach that value to the p paragraph. So first text box input value we have to attach for first paragraph. So already we got the reference, right? P text ref. Okay, dot. Now here we cannot say value, right? So whatever we are keeping inside p, right? Now this particular, we are writing something, right? This is particular we call inner text or inner HTML. We can call it as inner text or inner HTML. So what is the difference between inner text and inner HTML? It is very simple. So I recommend you guys to search the difference between inner text and inner HTML. And if you found that answer, just try to comment that answer in our comment box. So let us see how many people can research and comment it, right? So now I want to enter whatever the value I have entered in first input box, that value should come here, and whatever I enter in second input box, that value should come here. So this is called inner text, right? So we have to attach, so we have to get the paragraph reference dot, we have to say inner text equals to what we want to attach. You wanted to attach some value, that value present here. So copy this and paste here. That's it. In the same way, you have to get the second paragraph reference. So we already got, that is nothing but p password ref dot inner text equals to what value you wanted to attach. You wanted to attach the value of second input box, so it is present here. So copy and paste here. That's it. Now if you right click and open in default your browser, now here I'm entering name as Kabir and password as Sagi, and this is our name. Sagar and Sagar should come down. Now we got Kabir and Sagi, right? Now I want see here, let me write something like BR. Save it, come here and refresh. Let me say once again Kabir and Sagi. So we got something here, right? But we are getting we are getting in the same row. So let me remove this particular row from here. Let me save it, come here and same way refresh it, and let me say once again Kabir and the Sagi. Yeah, now this is coming Kabir and Sagi. I want something like this, right? Or else you can just remove from here container, just remove that everything from container, keep outside your container. That's it. So now it will come in proper way. And let me remove this br tag as well. So if you refresh it and if you say Kabir and Sagi and save data, you got Kabir and Sagi. Now this is what I wanted. Whatever data I have like entered, that data should come here. Now once I click on the save button, this value should get vanished, right? Now we want to make this text box as an empty. So the thing is very simple. Just you have to get these two things. You have to say input text reference, I mean first button equals to empty. In the same way, just copy this, means you have to take the reference of second input box, and for that you have to give dot value should be empty. That's it. Save it. Come here, and if you refresh and if you say again Kabir and Sagi and save data, now Kabir and Sagi came here and it became empty. Now this is how we have to write the code. So here what you have learned, like how can you access elements of your HTML in JavaScript. So we can access in many ways. So this get element by ID is one way. We can access it using tag name. We can access it using class name, and we have something like query selector where you can access using your CSS selectors. So we have so many ways, but this is a common way where we access the elements by giving the ID. So we will be seeing all other ways also in coming classes, in coming sessions, right? So as of now, I wanted to explain this one. So here just you learned what are the events. Events are nothing but some actions you are going to perform on the browser. So whenever you are going to perform some actions like click, like you are going to change something, you are going to press a key, like all these are called some actions on browser. Now for that actions, you need some handlers, right? Someone should be handle that particular action, event handlers. So that are nothing but your on click, on change, that will handle. So what is your purpose? Whenever you are going to click on that button, you wanted to do some operations. That operations, if you wanted to do, then you have to write the JavaScript code. Now here we are writing our JavaScript code in the same HTML page, but in future we will be creating separate file for our JavaScript code. Then how there we will be learning how can we attach a JavaScript file to our HTML file. That's very simple. Okay. So I hope you guys are able to do this thing. So just practice it, and if you get any kind of doubt, just WhatsApp us, or else you can comment on the videos so that we can answer your queries. That's it guys. Thank you for watching the video.